Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, your show host, and I am here with my friend and founder of Little Hearts of Hope, Kerri Steele. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we will launch in.
Oh, thanks for having me. My name's Kerri. I'm the founder and executive director of Little Hearts of Hope. We serve children who have a parent or a sibling fighting cancer. We teach healthy coping skills using play, art, and creative writing. And we really try and reinforce the fact that God has given us our emotions. They are a gift from Him, and really they are to draw us closer to Him.
What made you want to found Little Hearts of Hope?
So in 2010, my husband at the age of 33 was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 6 months to live. We had 3 young children at the time. They were 2, 4, and 6. And while he was given 6 months to live, the Lord actually gave him 3 years before He brought him home. And he passed away on Christmas Eve of 2012.
Wow.
Our kids were 5, 7, and 8. My oldest daughter turned 9 on Christmas Day, so the very next day. But I knew I needed help knowing how to help my kids during that time. It was really hard to know how much information to give them. I didn't want to scare them, but I also wanted to be honest because I wanted my kids to trust me. And so that meant that I was honest with them, but age appropriately. And when we were going through that cancer journey, it was also very difficult for me to process my own emotions while helping my children process theirs, while being a caregiver, while being a mother, all of these things at the same time. I knew I needed help. And there wasn't really anything out there. We did have the kids in therapy, but 1 hour a week was not necessarily beneficial for me at home when we were having dinner or doing bath time or bedtime, and they would ask those hard questions. So all of that to say, about a year after his passing, everyone kind of thought grief would end at a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go?
What's next?
Yeah. And I really had no idea. So I sent my kids to my parents, and I spent a week praying and fasting and asking God to give me some direction on what am I supposed to do? How am I going to take care of these 3 kids on my own? We had really wiped out all of our savings, all of our credit cards, trying to keep him alive. And joyfully so. I would rather be in debt the rest of my life and have him here with me.
Hands down.
And so
Agreed.
It was a decision that we made, and I don't regret it at all, but I did need to go back to work. So having worked in cardiac rehab prior to having kids, that was definitely an option, but I didn't necessarily want to go back into the hospital setting. Felt like maybe I would have some PTSD there. Plus, my kids were used to me being a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't want them to lose their dad and their mom at the same time.
Okay.
I was just really struggling with what I was going to do to provide for my family. So spent that week praying and fasting, and I'll be honest, I really went in it thinking, Lord, I need an answer to this question, which is probably not the best thing to do. Looking back, I got to the end of that week, and I had been given this vision for this program, but I did not realize what it was. I knew that what God had given me would have helped my family, and I gave it to a nonprofit. And I said, hey, you guys should do this. It was a nonprofit that had worked with my husband. They'd been a tremendous support to him. But I just said, hey, you guys should do this for families with kids. And they asked me to come and present it to the board. Maybe I was a little bit naive. I didn't even realize, not having any nonprofit experience, what that actually meant. And so I put a proposal together. I went and gave it to the board, and they called me the next day and said, hey, we love it, and we want you to run it. And I said, wait a minute.
What?
That's exactly, I said.
You want what?
I think maybe there's a misunderstanding here.
What?
I don't want to work for a nonprofit. I want a 401k. I want medical benefits. I thought I had certain things that I needed to feel secure. And they were like, well, there's no better person to run this than you. Why don't you spend a couple of weeks praying about it before you give us an answer? And so I spent 2 weeks going, Lord, is this really? This is what Oh, okay. I don't know that that's what I want to do. And so kind of wrestling back and forth with the Lord and then being like, well, it's just a job. If it doesn't work, then what's the big deal? I go find another job. I can go be a PE teacher at my kids' school. I could still be with them. I could move back home. I'm not from Texas, from New Orleans, and moved here when Katrina hit and loved it and decided to stay. But I thought I could go back home. There's so many different avenues I could take. So why not give it a shot? The worst that could happen is it doesn't work. And then I'm in the same place I am now, and I've tried something that didn't work. So I get together with this nonprofit. We start fundraising and reaching out to the clients that they already had that they were serving. And a couple months in, he comes back and he says, hey, I hate to break it to you, but we're going to have to fire you. And I was like, what did I do wrong? I told you I didn't have any experience. And he said, this is going to be a much larger nonprofit than ours is, and you can't be under our umbrella. In doing the research and reaching out to the clients that we have, we did not realize there was such a tremendous need, and there was no one filling that need.
Wow.
You need to start your own nonprofit, and we'll help you, but you're fired. And I was like, well, I'm just going to give it to another nonprofit because it was hard enough for me to say yes to work for a nonprofit. And then the idea of starting one with no business experience and raising 3 kids on my own, I didn't feel like I could be a business owner and everything that it would take to put into that.
It makes sense that you would be thinking that.
Yes. Well, he said, I think you should probably pray about it before you give me an answer.
Can't you tell me something else?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, that second round of prayer was truly, I don't even know what the right word is, but it brought me to my knees. I felt like God was asking me to jump off a cliff while holding 3 kids. And it felt like it was too much for him to ask of me. And so I wrestled with him about that. Ultimately, I said, I want to be obedient more than I want to have the security that I think that I need. And so I'm going to do this. But Lord, if I can't pay my bills one month, I'm out of here. That was 12 years ago. And here I am. And looking at that journey, I call it my Jonah moment, where I was like, no, Lord, I'm not going there. No, I'm not doing that. And it has been the biggest blessing of my life. I cannot believe I get to do this for a living. And I get to see purpose in my pain this side of heaven, that I get to work with people who have such generous hearts and hearts to give and to serve. It's such a beautiful community of people to work in. And God has been faithful. He's surrounded me with people to teach me what I've needed to learn all along the way. He has expanded my faith. He's expanded my capacity to love and serve in ways that I didn't even know was possible.
Wow. So many things that you just shared. You did address some of them, but I want to just go back to create some clarity around them when you were in the early stages of the journey that ultimately led to founding Little Hearts of Hope. I made a note. What were the limiting beliefs that were plaguing you? One of the things I heard was the security of 401k, of salary, even though you didn't use that word, but share with us some of the limiting beliefs that really were part of you going, no, Lord.
Yeah. Well, the idea that I would have to fundraise for my own salary was very overwhelming. I knew that I did not know how difficult our family's journey, how difficult it was to raise kids while my husband was fighting cancer. And so I didn't know that other people would realize how much help really people needed. And so would they buy into funding a program that they didn't even realize was a need? Did I have the ability to communicate that well enough? Public speaking was not something that I was comfortable with. In fact, I did it one time in middle school and totally froze in front of my entire school running for student council. And so, I mean, I would have a visceral reaction to having to get up in front of people and talk. I knew that was a tremendous part of working a nonprofit.
Yes, amen.
And I had not had good experience with that. And so I didn't trust myself to be able to communicate that message. So I think the ultimate belief was that I was believing or not believing in myself instead of trusting the Lord with this vision that he gave me, that he would equip me to do the work he was calling me to, and really relying on my own insecurities and my own self-doubt.
Man, that's tough. But you did say something that it caught my attention about thinking that I see as important for the person listening who maybe is on the precipice, because you said you felt as though God was asking you to jump off a cliff holding 3 children, right? Yeah. So for the person listening that's at the precipice of feeling this, God's calling me to jump off and it feels too costly. Yeah. You said the worst thing that can happen is, because initially, when you were going to be hired by a nonprofit and you were like, no, you're like, well, the worst thing, it's a job, right?
Yeah.
The job doesn't work out. I go get a different job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that oftentimes we underestimate what that thought will do for us in our willingness to take a courageous step. And so the fact that you said the worst thing that can happen meant that you took the nonprofit job, only to be fired, of course. I mean, let's be real.
In 2 months at that. Pretty quickly.
But, I mean, the fact that it only took them 2 months to realize it was going to be bigger than their nonprofit. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that there's a huge, huge need for it. Yeah. But I do think that's important thinking as well. The other important thing that you said that I would want to tie to thinking, you said in the second round of prayer, this was to start your own.
Yeah.
You got to the place of saying, I want to be obedient more than the security that I believe I need, or something like that.
Yeah.
What has obedience cost you in the last 14 years?
Oh, gosh. It's cost me a lot.
Talk about it.
Well, I want to preface it with saying it cost me a lot, but I have gained more than I ever could have imagined. So, and maybe that even in and of itself is the limiting belief of what I thought I needed and wanted versus what God wanted to give me was so much more abundant than I had ever imagined for myself. So I think when I say working out my salvation with fear and trembling, it really is the laying down of my will, my desires, and saying, Lord, this is what I want, but I give it to you. And I let you do with my life what you want to do with it. And I can say that because I wrestled with him so deeply and so intimately that I had to keep bringing myself to the place of saying, if this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? And at each of those levels, if the thing that I don't want is what happens, do I still trust God? Is he still good? And ultimately, the answer to every single one of those is yes.
Yes.
Even if I don't understand it, he is still good. I believe within every fiber of my being that he is who he says he is. And so how do I walk that out? It's releasing everything that I want and think that I need to him and trusting him.
I love that you said that obedience has cost you a lot, but what you've gained is so much greater.
So much greater.
So much greater. And see, I think that's the thing. I think you're spot on that the limiting belief of most Christ followers is that my obedience will cost me more than I will get as a result of my obedience.
Yeah.
And then because that is the limiting belief, they either have delayed obedience, incomplete obedience, or they just reject altogether.
Yeah.
and then they miss out on what could have been where that's concerned.
Yeah, I think that's entirely accurate. And I would say, I think it's the hard things in our life that bring us to being able to figure that out, to seeing it.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, how many of us, when we are in desperate need of rescuing, whether that's financial, whether that's our health, in a relationship, what have you, when we are at the end of ourselves is when we turn to God and say, hey, I need your help. Now, if we look at it as, hey, I need this, like a genie in a bottle kind of thing, we're going to be disappointed with God more often than not, because he knows what we need, big picture. We know what we need in that moment. And if we're not open to allowing him to refine us, we're really not being obedient. We're clutching our life and trying to direct it on our own. And I have done that many times. Yeah. I still do that often, especially in certain areas of my life where I really struggle to let go and let God take over. So I am saying that, not that I have figured this out, but that I continue to get to the end of myself and I'm like, it's you, Lord. It's the hard things that have brought me closer to you. I will say, like my husband's death. If I had not experienced that, there are elements of God's character that I would not know intimately. I wouldn't know his comfort. I wouldn't know his provision in ways that I didn't know before any of that. He was still a good God, but when you are in that barren place where you don't know where your next step is, trusting him with it is 1,000% gonna lead you in the right direction.
You said hard things in our life. It's the hard things in our life are what get us to the end of ourselves, and that's when we're more likely to turn to the Lord. Your focus at Little Hearts of Hope is on the healthy coping skills, which I have to imagine that as you were building Little Hearts of Hope, because your children were 5, 7, and 8 when their dad died, that they were part of that mission with you. Talk to me about how your children benefited from Little Hearts of Hope and what you were doing because they're now 19, 21, 22?
Yeah, so my son will be 19 in next week, actually. And my daughter will be 21 in August. And then my oldest is 22 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how have they benefited from the journey that the Lord has had you on? Yeah,
well, I'll say, first of all, I did not create the curriculum on my own. Okay. I went to a social worker with hospice, to a play therapist, and then elementary school counselor.
Okay.
And I said, hey, here's this vision that the Lord has given me. These are all believers. Here's this vision the Lord has given me. How can I use this in a way? I'm not a therapist.
Right.
And I want to equip families, to strengthen families. Parents are not therapists. How can we help families like this without having degrees?
Right.
And so we kind of teased out how creative expression is something like parents teach their kids healthy coping skills or they don't, or they teach them unhealthy coping skills, right? So parents are the ones who ultimately are teaching those things to their children. So creative expression, play, art, creative writing, those are all healthy ways to manage emotions that are really, really fruitful for children, for young kids. They're great for adults too.
Sure.
But children are going to benefit from that much more than talk therapy because they don't have the experiential knowledge. They don't have the language.
Even be able to articulate what's going on in their mind.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And so they helped me understand how we can do this in a way that is not providing therapy. They then talked me through, these are the most common emotions that kids will experience when they are watching a loved one suffer like this. And so we created this curriculum of, number one is just like you were saying, the emotional vocabulary. Let's make sure we know some feeling words. Let's be able to connect them to facial expressions so that kids can start learning that. And then secondly, the second part of our program is, where am I feeling? So what am I feeling in my stomach? What am I feeling in my face, in my hands? Is my heart racing? So you start to connect the mind and the body together. And then the next 10 months are different emotions. So we do things and we go over things like anger, abandonment, false guilt, jealousy. Kids have a lot of false guilt because of their developmental stage. They really do believe that they are either the cause of something or they could be the solution for something. And so if we don't come in there with truth,
right,
and say, hey, there's nothing that you can do, what our kids are going to be thinking about is, we had one family whose brother developed bone cancer. The week before the little boy went to the doctor, they had been playing with Tonka trucks, and the little boy hit his brother in the shin with the Tonka truck, and his brother had to get his leg amputated from bone cancer. That kid for months believed he caused it.
Wow.
And so he was so ashamed. He had so much false guilt about that and so much shame about that. He didn't talk about it. His parents didn't know. And plus they were in survival mode.
Correct. Because of everything going on. Yes.
Right. And so all of that to say is we really do need to talk to our kids and be honest with our kids, to build trust and to take away a lot of the lies that they create in their own minds that they will hold on for decades. I have so many adults that come up to me in networking events and find out what I do and come and share their story with me about how that happened to them when they were this age and they lost their parent and nobody talked to them. And now they're in therapy because they can't hold down a job, because they can't maintain a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Because they've been holding on to so many lies.
Yes. That's tremendous. I mean, you shared that because I asked how your own children benefited from the journey that you've been on.
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't actually answer that.
But what you did answer was really, really important because it helped me to better understand how you've laid out the program, that it's not therapy, but it is developing healthy coping skills that without them, you do have people going into adulthood not understanding what the block is or what is keeping them. It could be in a dark place. It could be in an unhealthy place. Yeah. So it's helpful to know that. I just wanted to be able to kind of full circle where your children are now and how they have benefited from the program.
Yeah, so a lot of the materials that we send to these families are things that my kids and I did at home with the hospice social worker that came to our house when my husband was in hospice, that my children did in their play therapy sessions with their therapist. And it was more, these are the activities that parents can do with their kids, and you can put them in a package and mail them, because not everything is stuff that you can mail. And then to give kids something exciting to look forward to, we also wanted it to be really fun and exciting things in those packages, and to make having those conversations a fun thing that they looked forward to.
Yes, versus
instead of
depressing thing.
Sit down, we need to talk.
Right.
No kid wants that. So... yes.
That's really cool. And now, are your children involved in the nonprofit?
They are not right now.
Okay.
They were when they were younger. We started at my kitchen table, putting the packages together and praying over every package and every child. They helped me fill it.
Aww. And
they are now, I have one in Virginia, one is in Arkansas. And
so they're doing life things.
They are doing life things. Yeah.
So what has it been like for you? Your husband died. It's now been almost 14 years, or almost 14 years. What is that? When you think about you personally, right? I mean, because he was your husband and the father of your children, and your reality shifted dramatically in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So if you had to share, separate from the mission of Little Hearts of Hope, how has Kerri Steele grown as a person?
It's been a journey. Number one, I had to grieve. I spent a lot of time helping my children grieve and grieving myself, the loss of the life that I had hoped for and planned for. I had to rediscover who I was as a single parent, and then just as a single individual. Those were scary ideas to tackle, but kind of exciting too. If I allowed myself to be excited instead of feeling guilty that I was enjoying something and I shouldn't be enjoying something, I kind of had to get over that hump.
Yeah.
So I rediscovered things that I had loved before I got married and started having babies, and all of the adulting that is that.
Right.
I created moments for myself to do that, as for my own mental health, to take care of myself so that I could take care of my kids. As my kids got older, I was able to do more and more. And now I'm in a phase of my life where I am getting to figure out what new things do I want to learn, and jumping into that because I have more time and space to do that.
Sure, because you have 2 that are gone.
Yes.
The 19-year-old still at home? Or?
He is still at home. He's on an apartment hunt today, actually. He's desperate to move out because he doesn't know what adulting is yet. But it's fun. I thought I would be sad to see my kids go, but it's fun to see them
Flourish.
figuring things out on their own and turning into adults, and the conversations that we can have now. There's a depth and a connection that's really beautiful.
That's exciting. I mean, it really is exciting. So have you dated since any of this?
Yeah, off and on.
I can only imagine, especially having, given, like you said, it's interesting. You said rediscover who you were as a single parent, but also as a single person.
Yes.
Because, I mean, just thinking about it scripturally, the 2 shall become one flesh.
Yeah.
So part of that being removed is it's a very difficult and challenging reality.
Yeah. That took a long time for me. I think it was probably close to 7 years after he had passed before I even started feeling like I wasn't married. It took me a very long time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because I was so heavy into starting the nonprofit and raising 3 kids on my own. There wasn't a whole lot of time for me to focus on that.
Exactly. You were just trying to make every day
yes,
work.
I was trying not to drown.
Right. I can only imagine that you were trying not to drown.
Yes. But again, the Lord knew that before he created the foundations of the earth.
Yeah.
And so trusting him with that part of my life.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I would love to hear from you scripture that has helped you in the dark time, the challenging times, as well as just when life could feel mundane, like nothing major is happening. It's just your day to day to day to day.
Yeah.
What scriptures have been part of your thought process?
The first one that comes to mind is Philippians 4:8.
My life verse.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
I remember that so deeply being embedded in me in undergrad. I was in college, and just reciting that verse over and over and over again. That has come back to play a huge part in my adulthood. And when things get really dark, when things get really heavy, when things get really confusing, to be able to go back to that scripture and just remind myself, this is what the Lord says to think about.
Yes, and for those of you listening, it's very specific, right?
Yes.
We want to think on the things that are true. At least the version that I have memorized might be slightly different for you. But true, just, noble, pure, lovely, of good report, virtuous, and praiseworthy. Think on these things.
Yeah.
It's not a suggestion.
No, it's a command.
It is a command.
Yeah.
It's really centering our minds on the right things.
Yes. And I will say for me, the shift for me that has made such a big difference in that particular verse is when I start to reflect on the things that I am feeling or thinking, to take it to the next level and say, how do I feel about feeling that way? What do I feel about thinking that way? And does it bring condemnation? Does it bring more guilt? Does it bring more shame? If it does, I need to make sure that I am changing the way that I'm thinking about that. Like, it's a great litmus test, I guess.
I use it as a filter.
Do you?
Yeah. My Pick Your Path books and also the faith-based version of my signature keynote is around Philippians 4:8.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is, I call it, I believe it is the thought sorter for specifically for the believer to determine. But I love how you just said, how do I feel about feeling that way?
Yeah.
Or how do I feel about thinking that way? Yeah. And specifically that if you have a viscerally, let's say, negative response or a convicting response, the recognition to shift the thinking immediately, because that's part of it. We all we have a choice. We have a choice to continue thinking down a path, or we can shift that path. We can take the Jonah route, to use because you brought up Jonah.
Yes.
We can take the Jonah route, get on the boat, deal with the storm, get thrown overboard and swallowed up by the whale, right? Because that's what happens when we allow ourselves to hang out in poor thinking. Or we can shift that and actually obey the Lord.
Yes. But, here's another thing, though, that I think is super important is who you surround yourself with.
Agreed.
Because we have beliefs that we don't even realize are not healthy beliefs until there are beautiful people in your life who help you see it.
Yeah.
And so making sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who love you and who you trust, that can help you come out of some of those wrong beliefs and wrong ways of thinking.
Agreed.
With gentleness and with love, and to be able to receive that humbly and say, you're right, I need to go work on that.
Thank you for sharing.
No,
I'm saying that's when someone says something to us like that. It's like you should say thank you for pointing that out, or thank you for helping me to see it.
Yes.
It doesn't make it easy to hear, but it's so important in our growth.
I think when it comes from people that you know and trust and love, it's a lot easier to accept. I don't know that I would accept it as well from a stranger versus from my best friend.
Yeah.
It feels judgmental coming from a stranger. It feels loving coming from somebody you're doing life with.
From a friend, yeah. Well, and I think that's why, it should be truth and love.
Yes.
Right? And it is tough to receive even something well stated in a loving way when you have no relationship with them.
Yeah.
So
I used to tell my kids that truth has to come with love, and love has to come with truth. You can't take it out in going either way. You can't take one away from the other one.
Yeah, I agree. Work. They are inextricably connected.
Yeah.
It's just so important, and there's so much value in that. So think about that. When you knew your husband was dying, he was determined to have a terminal cancer, and you're making decisions on, what do I tell my children? How I want them to trust me. That's what you said. And you wanted to be honest. So there needed to be truth there, done in a loving way. And you love them enough to share the truth. Yeah. Both.
Yeah. And to find out the best way to do that for each of their individual ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, there's just your foundation, your own personal experience is what you bring to the mission of Little Hearts of Hope. Tell people how they can learn more and get involved.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think you said you were going to put all of the social handles on there, but littleheartsofhope.org. Everything is on our website. You can share your own story with us. We produce a quarterly newsletter to share hope and encouragement to somebody who's at a different part of their cancer journey. And then we have our fundraising events. We have ways to volunteer, and a little bit more about my story and how we got started.
That's awesome. And for those of you who are in in the Texas area, we have North Texas Giving Day.
Yeah.
Correct? That is happening. It happens in September. So Little Hearts of Hope is one of the organizations that folks can give to.
Yes. And you don't have to be in Texas to give on North Texas Giving Day.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. We have givers, we have donors from all over the country who give on that particular day to help us reach a matching gift.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I love that. Well, I ask every single guest why they believe it's important to cultivate thinking that matters. What would you say?
Well, I would say it's a biblical mandate, first of all. And so if you're walking in obedience to Christ, then that is something he calls you to do. And I would also say that we don't know the impact that we have on others when we are doing our own work and sharing our own journeys from a wrong way of thinking to a wrong way of living. Any of that transformation, God will use that to help other people. And he loves us enough to walk us through that journey.
Yeah, I love that. So good. So good. Well, I am so grateful to be able to have you on the show and for my listeners to hear more about Little Hearts of Hope. I would encourage you, like and subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and also drop a comment on your own story of whether it was you or you've journeyed alongside someone that has really gone through the cancer journey, and also tag folks that you want to know about Little Hearts of Hope. And then obviously check in the show notes for ways in which they can connect, follow, like, subscribe, donate, all the things that help you to be successful. Well, we are going to leave you with Philippians 4:8 because it is indeed a great truth filter and part of that mandate for cultivating thinking that matters, where Paul says, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report and virtuous and praiseworthy, think on these things. Because when you cultivate thinking that matters, you live a life that matters.